The northern governors elected on the platform of the APC have insisted that they will back a southerner to emerge as presidential candidate for the 2023 elections. Chairman of the Northern Governors Forum and the Governor of Plateau State, Samuel Lalong, made the position known to State House correspondent after meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari at the presidential villa earlier in the day. He clarified that the leaked memo that went viral on Saturday was the true position of the northern governors, and they came officially to consult with the president. According to the governors, President Buhari has not anointed any of the 23 aspirants expected to participate in the primary as flag bearer of the APC. The governors also spoke about why the governor of Kogi State and presidential aspirants in the race was not a signatory to the decision.
13 out of 14 governors agreed, and we took a decision to go and advise Mr. President. While we were on our way to advise Mr. President, I think part of the discussion that we did leaked out to the press. Well, we still went ahead and we told Mr. President. Mr. President, being a Democrat, said no, he must listen to us. He will listen to us. And so Mr. President granted us the opportunity today. Our meeting today is to reaffirm our position on that letter, on that statement. We also apologize to him that statement was made by all of us, and we reaffirmed the position, but we apologize that the statement leaked out before even our consultation with him. However, it is now in the message, not the messenger. And so Mr. President was very happy. He took our position, and out of that discussion, Mr. President, as a believer in democratic process, believed that any candidate was emerged through a transparent process. And the emphasis that Mr. President told us that for this election, for now, he has no anointed candidate. In the interest of unity, in the interest of peace, we recommended that, and also justice. Our recommendation is that the next president should come from the south.
The governor of Kogi State chose to excuse himself from meeting with Mr. President because he believes that he does not agree with our position. There are 14 APC governors out of the 19 northern states. 13 of us are on one page on this subject, and we all came to see the president. But the governor of Kogi State excused himself, and it is within his democratic rights to excuse himself. But 12 out of 14 is a supermajority. 13 out of 14 is an even bigger supermajority.
The National Convention of the governing All Progressive Congress, scheduled for Tuesday, will be unlike any other because of the first time the party is seeking a replacement for President Muhammadu Buhari, who has been the flag bearer in the last 8 years or 2 terms tenure since the party was formed. The Rise State House correspondent Adesua Morwa is here with us on some reports of last-minute meeting held by the president to ensure that his party remains united ahead of the presidential primary election.
23 presidential aspirants arrived at the residence of the president. It's a cordial atmosphere with underlying political intrigues. It comes barely 24 hours after the Presidential Screening Committee of the APC, chaired by former National Chairman John Oyegun, recommends that 10 of the presidential aspirants be advised to step aside or be screened out of the contest. The president describes the gathering as a continuation of a consultative process.
On the 31st of May 2022, I continued the series of consultations that will help the electoral fortunes of our party, beginning with the state governors. This is the second in the series, and I still look forward to meeting with party stakeholders. These steps are being taken to ensure that the unity and cohesion of the party are sustained and to provide direction.
To minimize the chances of discord and to counteract what might seem like an imposition of a candidate, President Buhari advises the aspirants to scale down their numbers by reaching a consensus.
Without prejudice to your qualifications, I urge all of you to hold consultations among yourselves and with the party, with a view to building a consensus in a manner that will help the party reduce the number of aspirants, bring up a formidable candidate, and scale down the anxiety of party members.
APC National Chairman Abdullahi Adamu also clarifies on the issue of print numbers of aspirants.
The spirit of consultation, the spirit of making everybody feel he matters, the spirit of getting every aspirant to know that he has been screened and he has been cleared to contest. That would do away with all the rumors about anybody being dropped and that kind of stuff. It's very, very strategic, and it is the advantage of the party, the benefit of the party. No. We are going to have a convention, and between now and convention, we'll see how many aspirants we may have left, and then we'll determine the best way to go about it. We just want to show we're as democratic as possible, and we're as fair as we can be, as equitable as the circumstances will permit us to be.
And on Sunday night, the president meets with another set of party members, those described as the National Advisory Council. They include members of the National Working Committee, ministers and governors, amongst others. The president reiterates the confidence in the screened aspirants, but admits the large numbers come with its challenges, capable of costing the party.
To further support the effort of the party, I have admonished the aspirants to consult among themselves and with the party, so that the objective of the recommendation by the leadership would be actualized. As members of the National Advisory Council of our great party, I recognize the fact that you all have diverse interests, spheres of influence, and expectations. You similarly possess the collective ability to ensure our victory at the 2023 polls by strengthening the stability and unity of the party.
While the president has described the series of meetings as fruitful, the only way the party measures the success of these efforts, championed by him, is to have a rancor-free primary and win the election February next year. As the clock ticks, and with a few hours left before the APC presidential primary election holds in the nation's capital, Abuja, all eyes are now on the party's leadership to provide a level playing field, as some of the top contenders have rejected a consensus and insisted on an elective convention.
National Organizing Secretary of the All Progressive Congress, APC, Suleiman Argungu, has denied that the National Working Committee has endorsed the President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, as the consensus presidential candidate of the party. Argungu, while addressing journalists at the party secretariat after the NWC meeting, said the issue of consensus was never discussed at the meeting. He stressed that the party's national chairman, Abdullahi Adamu, only gave them the information, but they are yet to discuss it, and it remains Adamu's personal opinion.
It's not an issue that has been discussed on the floor of the NWC. And we have just, like you are all aware, just recently, about 2 days ago, the Northern Governors meeting had a meeting that the leadership of this country under the All Progressive Congress should go to the north, and equally the Southern Governors also affirmed that. So we, as members of the NWC, we are also with the governors on what they have said, and that's some minutes ago. The governors in the north have gone to the presidency and have just briefed the press that they are still on what they said with regard to the power shift to the south. It's not an issue that had to be deliberated on the floor of the NWC. It's an information, and all of us are entitled to our opinion. We are all Democrats.
All right, let's talk about this morning, Tundu.
So much to talk about,
Winter
indeed. Yes. Oh, I watched that. Anyway. Yeah, politicians are such nocturnal creatures. It's been reported that they were having this meeting till 3 a.m. And they're going to, go back and start again at 10 a.m. So basically what's been decided so far as we know, is that the northern governors have decided to stick true to their word. For them, they've given their word. It's a matter of honor that they cannot renege on that word. And they have already said that they want the presidency to be rotated to the south, and they're sticking by it. This is in spite of what the national chairman, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, had said about how Ahmed Lawan will be the candidate of the APC. He has made Ahmed Lawan a factor, but it looks as if he has done that unilaterally, based on what the governors have said, as another very important stakeholder, another power block governors. Another power block in the party is the NWC, which also seem to be saying that the national chairman is, expressing his own view and not the generality of the party. That the generality of the party is seeming to toe that line of rotating to the south. So, we've been talking for weeks now about this really unwieldy list of 23 aspirants. It's now been pruned down. Since we're looking southwards, it's been pruned down to 5 aspirants from the south, namely the Vice President, Yemi Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, former Minister of Transport now, obviously, Rotimi Amechi. And you also have on that pruned down list Governor of Ekiti, Kayode Fayemi, and Governor Dave Umahi, who we're talking to yesterday. And what does that tell us? A lot of the people, even from the south, that were APC aspirants, have sort of out of the running at the moment, based on this report, that we're now down to 5, which will still be whittled down to 2 when they meet today, hopefully. So we are getting some sanity. We're getting some control over the situation. And I'm sure overtures will be made to people who have not made this short list so far of 5. People like former governor of Ogun State, Senator Ebikunle Amosun, people like Pastor Tunde Bakare, former Speaker Dimeji Bankole, former Minister of State for Education, Honorable Wajuba. The list it's a very lengthy list of people who have not made this final list. And there's going to be pruned down to 2. We wonder who those 2 will be. And that, I guess, is what is, informing these heated discussions, as I imagine, which we saw when the governor of Kogi State walked out of the room. He was not in agreement with the majority, with the supermajority, if I'm going to borrow the phrase used by Governor Rufai of Kaduna State, of the northern governors, 12 out of 14. He wasn't in agreement, and I guess he wouldn't be, because he knows how much he's put in terms of effort, money into this race, so he walked out. So it all remains to be seen what happens at the meeting today, this morning.
All right. Doctor?
Well, certainly, today will prove to be very interesting. It looks like the APC convention is going to be a make or mar event for the party. But in terms of the developments that we have seen, we can, just compartmentalize them and take them one by one. One, the drama that happened yesterday at the meeting of the National Working Committee of the party. A 25-member National Working Committee then ended in, disarray, if you like, when the chairman of the National Working Committee of the APC, Abdullahi Adamu, decided to announce that a consensus candidate had been chosen in the person of the Senate President, Dr. Ahmed Lawan. Well, of course, we've seen the National Organizing Secretary of the party, Agungu, saying that that was the chairman's personal opinion. But the chairman of the party made a point. He said he arrived at that, he made that announcement after due consultation with the president. Well, I guess maybe he didn't think of the legal implications of what he was saying, because he could simply have said, well, in my opinion, I think it's Ahmed Lawan. Or he could have said, well, Ahmed Lawan, based on discussions with the president asking for reciprocity, and the governors supporting him, this is the person that the president has recommended. But he didn't put it like that, and that's why I say maybe he didn't understand the point about consensus. As defined in Section 84(9) of the Electoral Act 2022, Section 84(10) and Section 84(11), which says very clearly that for there to be a consensus candidate, then that candidate must have obtained the written consent of all the persons involved in that particular process, in that election, all the other aspirants. And then you can now go to the convention and ratify it. And that was why immediately the Tinubu campaign organization seized on that omission and said, look, the party will be well advised not to commit an act of illegality. But it is good to see that the party has rolled back from that gaffe. We can say it's a gaffe because it's like a goofed, by the chairman of the National Working Committee of the APC, who had previously, repeatedly, been accused of running a one-man show. However, the governors of the North, the APC governors of the North also kicked, because before now, they had said they prefer a Southern candidate. And then they went straight to the villa to meet with the president. And at the end of that meeting, they restated their position that in the spirit of fairness and justice, it is only right and proper to support a candidate from the South. Of course, as Tundum pointed out, the governor of Kogi State did not go because he's not party to that decision. But at the end of the day, 13 of the APC northern governors restated their position. I understand they reiterated that position further in the meeting that was held overnight. But something is instructive in what the president said to them. The president told them, I think I wrote it down somewhere, he said, "You were elected as I was. Have a clear mind as I have. God gave us a chance. We must be ready to take pain as we take joy. Let the delegates decide." Well, this is like in that statement, circulated by Garuba Shehu, the president of Nigeria and leader of the APC, speaking in poetry. We will see that transition from poetry to prose when the convention holds today at the Eagle Square here in Abuja. And what do I mean by that? There is, that statement is loaded with metaphor. Is the president referring to the point about reciprocity? Was he telling the 13 northern governors who met with him that, look, don't forget our previous discussion about reciprocity? But now that the papers are reporting today that there has been an attempt to prune down the number to just about 5 or 6 aspirants to make the process manageable, then, of course, it means that anything is still possible. Nothing can be ruled out. And I think what you should just do is to play it by the ear to see what happens. The persons that have been shortlisted, if that goes through and we see the drama again of some people withdrawing, stepping down for others, then it will be interesting to see how that turns out. Meanwhile, Senator Nnamani has withdrawn from the race, and he says he has not had the opportunity to consult, appropriately and in a detailed manner with the delegates. Well, I don't understand what that means, really. Well, did anybody prevent him from having access to the delegates? Or is there, some kind of subtextual indication that, he couldn't engage with the delegates because of some other difficulties? Well, we hope we will not end up with a situation, and it may well happen, whereby some persons will pull out of the APC out of, dissatisfaction with the outcome. As we have seen in Akwa Ibom, where Senator Akpanudo Edehe has already served notice of his resignation from the party. But, well, by the end of today, by tomorrow morning, we will know who the presidential candidate of the APC will be, and then the game will begin, for the rest of us to take a look at. But at the end of the day, we expect a fair process, and that everyone at that convention of the APC will conduct themselves after the fashion of gentlemen.
I'm excited, Dr. Abati. You talked about the word game. And to ask lyrical and poetry this morning, the word the Game of Thrones come to my head. And winter has come to the house of Lannister. And if you understand what I'm saying about the house of Lannister, you can liken what is happening now to what happened to the house of Lannister in Game of Thrones. There are two factions in this house of Lannister. As a faction that definitely wants power to come to the South because it is just, it is fair. Because that faction also understands that if the APC produces a northern candidate after 8 years of President Muhammadu Buhari, then there might be problems. Although that assertion, I must repeat, is not empirical. So please, follow me along as I make some very uncircumspected perspectives here. That's one. The other part says the only candidate that can win the election against another northern candidate as produced by the PDP is a northern candidate. And some say Ahmed Lawan. But let's even drill into the personality of Ahmed Lawan. A long-time senator, first-time Senate president. A lot of people say, does he have the gravitas to be able to hold his own against Atiku Abubakar? We can't say, because we don't have empirical proof about all of this. So that's another uncircumspected perspective here. And the third part to it is what the president himself wants, which a lot of people say he's not been able to say, or probably he has said what he wants and he saw the reaction and that's why there's a dial back. Or the governors that wanted a certain candidate insisted on it. So what did they do? They had meetings late into the night. They've been able to drill down to 5 people. And tell you what, yes, they've been able to drill down to 5 people, but you forget the other people that have spent a lot of money that feel disgruntled. What will become of those people? Do you think those people will still go ahead and support the APC in this election? Will they close ranks? That's a big question. A meeting will be held today, as we stated before, and after that meeting, they will drill down to 2 people that will knock it out of the convention. How viable will that be? Will this be the beginning of the end of the House of Lannister? Or will the House of Lannister become stronger after this winter season? One thing I can tell you is that the stage is set. Winter has come to the House of Lannister. And tomorrow we'll know the outcome. That's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Roto Sudiri, Michael Wilson to give updates on Africa global business activities. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our dependable Roto Sudiri is here to give us an African business update. Good morning, Roto.
Morning, Tunu. Good morning, Fire. I'll be very honest, I wanted to talk politics. Let's go into the business of the day. The Bureau of Statistics has released its trading goods stats. Let's take a look for Nigeria. Foreign trading goods. We had a trade surplus. Let's quickly get through this. Trade surplus for the first quarter of this year, 2022. We take a look at the numbers. 13 trillion naira is what we had in total trade. Exports, look at that, 7 trillion. Imports, 5 trillion. Trade balance plus 1.1 trillion. Let's quickly skip. This is no surprise. This next one. Crude oil, 5.6 trillion naira, making up 79% of exports. This was driven by higher oil prices, so the value of what we were exporting increased. Let's take a look at the next quick slide here. Our partners, India, #1 as far as exports destination is concerned. Spain, Netherlands, Indonesia, United States. As far as imports, the usual suspects. China, the Netherlands, Belgium, India, United States. No Africa. Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. That is something that has to improve to the way we trade more. Look at this. Top left, 1.5 trillion naira in imports was spent on bringing in refined petroleum products. Now, then the others, the top right, you'll see exports, 79% fuel and so on and so forth. You got kerosene and jet fuel at the bottom. But that key, top left, essentially 645 billion naira first quarter has been spent on fuel subsidies, meaning that 45% of the fuel subsidies have accounted for 45% of what we imported in terms of refined petroleum. So, I mean, it's mind-blowing. You spend 1.5 trillion to bring in refined petroleum products, and almost half goes towards paying fuel subsidies. It is not sustainable. Let's move on. This very quickly. Titan Trust is getting a $300 million facility from the Afri-Exim Bank. You know, Titan Trust took over the majority shares of Union Bank. Here is a quote from Mr. Benedict Orama. Says, as an international capital retreat from Africa, we must redouble our efforts to build an effective and resilient financial services sector on the continent, committed to intra-African trade, investments, and the development of regional value chains. You know the likes, essentially. And then, so this is all trade, as far as what he's talking about. If you take a look at his second quote here, essentially saying that this is going to support youth enterprise, startups, and critical success of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So very, very important there. So that's that. Then Lagos State is partnering with Owando to on electric buses. Do we need more buses? More buses in the electric? How are they going to be powered? Are they going to be power stations? I don't know, but it's a step in, I guess, the renewables.
Yeah, the green renewables.
The green renewables. There you go. The green renewables. So that's what's happening there. And then South.
So where are the roads?
Exactly. Where are the roads? South Africa. We finished there. The Gupta brothers were arrested in Dubai.
Finally.
Yeah, you know they've had ties to Zuma. Apparently, they've been accused of bilking billions of rand from South African state-owned enterprises. They're accused of the reason why Eskom is in trouble right now. You remember the protests in 2017 where they said Zuma must go. So they fled in 2018. They went over to Dubai. There's been a history of some Indians who have been very successful on the African continent, taking billions, and then they get into trouble, and then they run off to Dubai. The Vazwani brothers of the Stallion Group, they come to mind. Anyway, here is a quote from the South African Department of Justice. Ministry of Justice and Corrections Services confirms that it has received information from law enforcement authorities in the UAE that fugitives of justice, namely Rajesh and Atul, by the way, their brother Ayao, their third brother, wasn't arrested. That hasn't been explained why. Have been arrested. Discussions between various law enforcement agencies in the UAE and South Africa on the way forward are ongoing. There was an extradition treaty had to be ratified to get them over here. This is Stephanie Fink. I had to put this in on her LinkedIn. She says, "Woohoo! You can run, but you can't hide." And here's a quote from her here. She's the head of an NGO on corporate governance and stuff. And she says, "We've always said that fighting corruption in South Africa requires resilience. That if the rule of law is allowed to take its course, those implicated would eventually get their day in court. It seems like that day is around the corner for the Gupta kingpins." And then finally, just a short history of the Gupta family. Came in from Sarapuran in India. They set up a shoe store in South Africa in the 1990s, expanded to IT, media, mining, and the influence they gained in the Jacob Zuma government, massive. And that's our up there.
Start with the Guptas.
Yes.
South Africa's extradition treaty with Dubai is so new. The ink is barely dry. Last June, Paul Guptas, for many years, it would not have been possible to have them extradited, but now it is. Tough luck there. And you recall, it was this January, the State Capture Commission released the first part of their results, the Justice Zondo Commission, and it was just jaw-dropping, the rape and pillage of that country that these people are being accused of. So a lot of people are going to want them to have their day in court, and including Jacob Zuma, if he's been honest, because why should he go down for crimes that they're all allegedly committed together? And that's just the thing. So with regards to talking politics, I mean, even though we're not going to address it directly, it is the subtext here. That story you just shared about fuel subsidy is extremely sobering. Add that to that IMF report about how the next president of Nigeria is looking at using 100% of our revenue on debt service. You now have this fuel subsidy. The whole thing is just really nauseating at the moment.
Staggering.
I mean, I'm excited when now they brought Atul and his brother back to South Africa. They brought them back. They brought them back. Wait, now I'm excited. I'm seeing Jacob Zuma can sing like Joe Tolosa now. Really excited. You don't know what these guys were something else. Goodness me. They destroyed the PR firm, Bell Pottinger, because Bell Pottinger was representing them.
Wasn't McKinsey caught up in something with them?
KPMG. They destroyed KPMG's business in South Africa. Because of their shenanigan and everything. And these guys are finally back. So excited. Moving on, another story, it just shows why Africa doesn't trade among themselves. Because the bottlenecks are too much. I think I was watching in a documentary, or I think it was a speech by Dangote that said, he can't even sell his cement in Benin Republic. That Benin Republic gets most of their cement from China. So that speaks volumes about inter-African trade. And for you to have inter-African trade, you must have inter-African connectivity.
Right.
I hear we have less than 2 minutes. Doctor, over to you, sir.
Okay, quickly, let's start with the Guptas, or if you like, the Zuptas, because it's not just the Gupta brothers. When you add Zuma to them, they become the Zuptas. And what this points to, is the nature of corruption and the irresponsible conduct of African leaders from one end of the continent to the other, as we have seen, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. You see this international collusion dimension to corruption. These persons, they relocated to South Africa from their home state of Uttar Pradesh in India. And then they became so powerful that they pulled the strings, all the strings in government. Now, you can blame, because I had Rotus saying, oh, these Indians. No, it's not about their nationality. It's about their nature. And it's also about the conduct of African leaders. The unfortunate part of it, of course, is that till date, Jacob Zuma and the Gupta brothers continue to deny any wrongdoing. And so even if they are extradited, back to South Africa to answer charges, since the South African government has been asking for expatriation, well, there's no guarantee that that will still happen. They may still find a way of dodging the law in South Africa. Then there are banks that were also said to have been involved in the graft. And all those banks, including HSBC, Standard Chartered Bank, and the Bank of Baroda, they denied any wrongdoing. So, and this is typical situation in Africa, where when something goes wrong, nobody takes responsibility. And it's African leaders themselves who sell us out to outsiders. Quickly, on the foreign goods statistics from the NBS, National Bureau of Statistics, well, are we surprised that, fuel subsidy has gone up to over 1 something trillion in the first quarter of 2022? In fact, what the IMF said specifically is that this figure will be about 7 trillion by the end of 2022. And which shows this depth, the extent of the problem that we face if we're spending up to 7 trillion. And the National Assembly approved only just about 4.5 trillion for fuel subsidy. But we're being told that that will rise up to about 7 trillion, which means, Rotus, that you are quite right, this is not sustainable. But who is going to address the problem? Perhaps whoever becomes the next president of Nigeria will have the courage to take on the challenge frontally. But while the National Bureau of Statistics had that dim view of what has happened with regard to petrol imports, there is a positive side in that report of, trying to, follow in Tundun's tradition of looking at the positive side. We recorded trade surplus within that first quarter, an improvement of more than 23% from where we were in the fourth quarter of 2021, with the export of cocoa beans and sesame seeds in particular. Finally, as to the electric buses that Oando and Lagos State government are planning to introduce on the streets of Lagos. Well, by 2050, we're told about 80% of vehicles globally will probably be electric vehicles, which is fine. In Kenya, in Uganda, in Namibia, in Rwanda, they are already ahead in that regard. So it's a point Nigeria will get to. But do we have the infrastructure? Would we be able to manage it very well? The only silver lining here is that it's a public-private partnership model. Maybe that will make it more possible, more realizable.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Abati. I'm going to blame technical issues. Reuters didn't actually say anything about Indians this or Indians that.
Thank you.
We don't want to start an international incident like what Indian officials are facing right now.
Some Indians,
with their little Islamophobic row. But thank you very much, Reuters.
I like the way Rotu stated it properly.
Thank you.
Don't you start, Rufai. Moving on to more business update, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. And looking for direction, really, once again, trying to work out what's going on. That's what Asian stocks are doing. The growth-centric Northern Asia heavyweights did actually much better than the more value-oriented ASEAN markets. They're struggling. Australia enacted a 0.5% interest rate rise. Mainland Chinese stocks in positive territory. Shanghai up 0.4%. The Shenzhen composite fractionally higher. Hong Kong up about 0.1%. And now the Chinese ride-hailing giant Didi is up 24%. This is an important story in as much as it looks like the regulators are getting slightly softer in China than they were before. It's been one of the worst hit regulatory worst hit companies due to Beijing's regulatory tightening, and it looks as though the cybersecurity probe and all the rest of it's is in just about being dropped. And this, of course, is China's dealing with the economic fallout from the lockdowns in Shanghai and so on. According to the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Russia is exporting starvation. This is because of the blockade of the grain ports and so on. It's hoped that something like this will actually be moved through. The president of Ukraine is hoping that export will actually be pushed through various Ukrainian ports, and the United Nations Secretary Antonio Guterres has held talks also to try to get this grain supply actually going. Russia's trying to explore a way around the the dollar bond payment blockade that is actually affecting it right now. The country's exposed to historic debt defaults. It has to pay in dollars. It's trying to work a way around that and pay in rubles. On Friday, apparently the Russian finance ministry wired $100 million worth of payments in 2 Eurobonds in rubles to settle its domestic expenditure. But unless the money finds the way to the banks in dollars, it may constitute a default. Let's turn our attention to the United States. Futures down very, very slightly overnight. Not a great deal of movement as far as the markets were concerned yesterday. Apple, look, I'm not going to advertise Apple for you, and I'm not going to go through all the various the things that they announced at their annual product launch, their annual developer product launch yesterday. What I will say is that Apple, it was actually more important for what they didn't say. They didn't really answer questions specifically about supply chains and so on, and no comment from them whatsoever. They're also, now get this, they're also joining Klarna and Affirm, which are both battling investor pressures, slower commerce growth and rising interest rates. It's going to be called Apple Pay Later, and this is a buy now, pay later scheme, which Apple are actually getting into right now. As far as the UK is concerned, the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, just about survived, but there was a vote of confidence, as you know, yesterday. 41% of the party failed to back him. He thinks he's through it. He is not. There's a lot more problems. It's not just the controversies over the parties and the rest of it. There's a cost of living crisis, as you well know. There's a travel crisis. There's pressure on sterling. It's not looking very good. He will have to pull something out of the hat fairly rapidly if he's going to survive. So as far as the cost of living crisis is concerned, retail sales down again. Somebody was talking on the radio earlier this morning. To run an articulated lorry costs now £20,000 a year more than it did, and that's all down to the rise in the price of diesel. And the motoring organisation, the Royal Automobile Association, has also said that petrol could soon hit 180 pence a litre. If that doesn't mean a great deal to your viewers, that's an enormous amount right now. It's almost doubling in price, and that's no great surprise that UK shoppers are spending much less than they actually did. Sales rose sharply last year after the pandemic. That momentum has not carried forward. The London Metal Exchange, now this is a traditional, what we call open outcry market. It's bracing for more legal action. It was faced by Elliott Management, suing yesterday for $458 million. Now it's been joined by another company called Jane Street, which is a top market Wall Street maker, a market maker from Wall Street, £15.3 million. The issue being that they closed down their nickel trading in March, which we reported on. People are saying, do you know what? You should have left it. We could have carried on. We could have gone on with the market. So they're suing them for lack of business. And oil finally up at $120 a barrel, and no great shakes, no great perceptions that it's going to get any lower than that. We're getting to the sort of post-Ukraine invasion highs that we saw, and there's no way that that's actually going to come down, whatever you feel about Venezuelan and Libyan production coming onto the market. That is the global view this morning.
Right, Michael. Boris Johnson pretty much, I think, is out already, because when you look at the numbers, yeah, 248 people voted for him, but guess what? 160 of the MPs that voted for him are on government payroll, so definitely they'll vote for him. The remaining 88, yes, voted for him, as against the number 148 that voted against him. So 41% of his party doesn't want him. He's as good as out with the cost of living crisis that he doesn't seem to have solutions to. Like I asked you this morning again, what are the solutions to the cost of living crisis? Secondly, I also ask you, the markets are going down in America. The futures markets are not looking any better. And why is it that with all the sanctions, Russia is still finding a way to get some dollars in?
What's actually happening is that Russia is still selling its oil at discounted prices, certainly to the likes of India and China, as we understand it. As I was saying yesterday on the programme, that Malta, Greece, and I think Cyprus, that's it, are other big shipping organisations, big shipping countries, and they have noticed that their oil cargoes have actually risen. So that's where it's going. So it's still actually making money from that. It may well make money from grain as well, as Ukraine appears to be stifled right now. As I was saying earlier on, there are various people trying to explore a safe passage for grain out of Ukraine, but it's not happening right now. As far as Boris Johnson's concerned, theoretically, he has another year, but of course there are by-elections, there are elections, all sorts of people coming up. I mean, this is going to happen. There's no question. This is a government under crisis, going the normal way of conservative governments. They always have to go through all these leadership challenges. Who's going to take his place? That's probably the most important thing. Fatally wounded? No. Seriously wounded? Yes.
Right, on Boris Johnson, what happens at this point with all those lovely bills that were outlined in the Queen's speech? Very important bills, the Financial Markets Bill, Brexit Freedoms Bill. If he can't actually get his own backbenchers in line, as Rufai has said, 3/4 of Tory MPs who are not a part of the government voted against him. How is he going to sort of try and staunch the bleeding? Is it possible at this point? Will he have to attempt some kind of reshuffle, perhaps reward some people? What's he going to have to do? Because really, you can't have a lame duck government.
No, true. I think there probably will be a reshuffle. Again, politics is not my area, but what I would say as a member of the public and as an observer of things, that what he needs to do, and I don't know how he's going to do this, is to actually do something about the cost of living crisis. Now, it may be that essential transport, for example, gets some kind of help as far as their fuel is concerned. There may well be rationing. I have absolutely no idea. That's what I would do. I'd take us back to almost what happened during the Second World War, when we actually had to have ration books and we had to go and there was no question about luxuries. We just had the basics to eat. And that'll soon actually, I think, get people's minds quite focused on what they actually need to live on. I think we're still living in the days of thinking luxurious thoughts, but not having the money to pay for it.
Right, Doctor?
Quickly, let me ask you. Clearly, Prime Minister Boris Johnson is wounded. No matter how he and his allies try to, construct the victory. With 41% of members of his party in Parliament voting against him, 148 of them, it looks like he may become a lame duck Prime Minister from this point going forward. Theresa May won a vote of confidence in Parliament by a wider margin. She was gone within 7 months. Margaret Thatcher was within the same range when a vote of confidence was passed on her. Then, of course, she had to resign within 2 days. But let's not dwell on politics. I wanted to ask you, how is the market responding the morning after? How is sterling doing? Or this is just politics and it has no effect whatsoever?
No,
secondly,
it's not.
Elon Musk, what is he up to this time around?
I think until the ink is actually dry on the paper and in terms of that deal, then we might see something. I have no idea what he's going to say tomorrow. It's completely unpredictable. As far as Boris Johnson is concerned, yes, history tells us exactly as you've said it. I think he will be a lame duck Prime Minister. And Tunda's question about the bills which are hanging in abeyance at the moment, will those get through? I have no idea. It looks like a shambles to me. But all I can say is that the pound is under pressure. The pound is under pressure as well. And until that's actually solved, then we will wait to see what the markets do about currencies.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Wilson. Love that ring again. Been a while I heard that.